Good evening. The Rancho Public Schools Board of Education meeting for Monday, August 14th, 2023 is now called to order. If all would please arise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. JC, can you take a roll call for us?
President Galbraith,
Present.
Vice President Morgan,
Present.
Secretary Scott,
Present.
Board Member Tripp,
Present.
Board Member Tyler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we'd like to welcome everyone out to our meeting tonight. We'd like to, Vice President Morgan is going to be joining us virtually tonight. We're just grateful for technology and that he'll be able to be on with us for tonight. We'll go ahead and start our meeting with some introductory comments by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Visu Cleveland.
Good evening, and thank you for being with us this evening. We had a part of this meeting starting at 4 o'clock, a Finance Committee meeting, and the topics that were covered during that meeting were the monthly financial report, discussion about Booster Club funds, facility use agreement, employee retention and compensation, and some discussion about looking at seniority recognition, and then a presentation on purchasing through Amazon. We've had a really good start for this school year. It was a very successful week, particularly for transportation. And we had a meeting today with Len Carl and during cabinet, and we are really having a really good year, continuing to make some adjustments to bus routes and schedules, but overall transportation has run very well. And so I want to thank her and thank the drivers for all their work, because it makes such a difference. Our students can get to school on time, and it just starts the day right for everyone. And so we want to commend them for their hard work for getting things up and going this year. And of course, that is all due to being able to be fully staffed. And they have been fully staffed at the start of the year. We are continuing our trial run using the Evolve technology touchless security system at Cleveland, and we'll be looking at some other sites as well. We're still working to get all the students through the system in a timely manner, but it has gotten better every single day, and we're still trying to refine that system. I don't know if you saw, I will get the board a copy of the Albuquerque Journal. It was the headline story this week, and if you didn't have a chance to see it, you might want to read it. Very interesting story on how different districts look at things in different ways. We have a few teacher and education assistant vacancies, but we are better staffed than we have been in a decade. And so it is just wonderful. We thank HR and our principals and others for their hard work. And we certainly have some great talent. Okay, attendance and behavior plans. We're still working on enrollment numbers. It appears that we are down in enrollment from our projections, but we're still trying to finalize those numbers. We have had wonderful cooperation from our students and our parents on attendance and behavior plans, and we thank everyone, the students, their parents, the staff, everybody for really moving forward with the plan, and we do believe it's going to make a big difference in our district this year. We still have some schools registering students. Not everybody in the country starts at the 1st of August. And so we're finding some that are coming in, particularly from other parts of the country just now, that are registering their students, and we're not aware that we were starting as early. And then we are continuing to work hard. And we've said if we wanted to raise the expectation for attendance and behavior, we also needed to raise the supports. And so that has been an ongoing effort to provide those additional supports for our families so that they can get their students to school. Sometimes we run into problems. We run into some problems related to transportation, and we hope folks will understand that we do have to abide by state regulations for funding and for students who can and cannot ride the bus. That is not a local decision, and we continue to advocate for some additional flexibility, but that would have to come at the state level rather than the district level. Facility use agreement, this is something that we will be talking about. The purpose of a facility use agreement and the fees that go with it are really to help the district recover the direct costs for the use of our facilities. And we have our facilities are used all of the time. Every field, our buildings, we certainly have a lot of community use, and we welcome that. Certainly, though, the priority for all of our buildings and grounds is first and foremost to support our district programs and extracurricular activities. So those community things come after. We have been able to provide those things for our students because that's obviously the business that we're in. Facility use must be allocated too on an equitable basis for groups wanting to reserve our buildings and grounds. And so we've had in the last few weeks some folks asking for an exclusive agreement for them to use all of our facilities. We can't do that. We have to open it up for the entire community, and we have to try to be as fair as we can in the allocation of those slots. And I think you may be aware, I think we mentioned in the spring, but I'll just mention it one more time. Facility use is now part of Safety and Security Department. There were several reasons for that change, and we made that transition this past May, and they will be the ones helping organize and monitor the facility use agreements that we have. So we have proposed facility use agreement for the 2023-2024 school year, and Mike Baker will be talking about that before the board. As I said, we do seek to recover some of the costs related to the public use of our buildings and fields, and we do want to open our facilities to the community as much as we can. However, there are some areas where we are really challenged, and what we're really facing right now is just a continued wear and tear on our facilities, and some of it is significant. And so we are having to try to balance that. I just wanted to show you one picture that Todd Rush sent to me, but this is the baseball field at Rio Rancho Middle School. And it's in terrible shape. And we have several other baseball fields that look a lot like that. And so we're going to have to decide whether to take some of those fields off, like for a year rotation, in order for the fields to recover. If you look back, you can see where the batting mound is and where the pitcher's mound is. This is the field. This isn't the outside of the field. It's part of the field. So I just wanted you to have an idea. There's just some of our grounds that are taking a lot of wear, and we're going to have to do some things to build those back up again. And so, one of those possibilities will be a rotation so that they can recover and we can go and do some work on them. It used to be a lot of sports were one season only, and almost no sports today are one season. They play all year round. And so there's spring ball, but there's fall ball, there's summer ball, there's, and it's true of all of our sports. So it's hard sometimes to get in and do the maintenance work that needs to be done to get these fields back on track. I can remember when this was a beautiful field at Rio Rancho Middle School, and it needs a lot of work right now. Can we back up just a second? I don't know, this is not quite we're missing some things off this PowerPoint, but I would want to add that we also have needs. It's just not athletics, and we have also needs in some of the other areas as well. So hopefully they may have moved the PowerPoint around. Hopefully we'll address that. Okay, she had moved on to one more beyond that, so I thought we didn't have it. So thank you. We also have some real needs in our fine arts areas. As you can see, this is the curtain at Rio Rancho High School. You can see what bad shape it's in. And this is the marching field for the band at Rio Rancho High. It's in really bad shape. And so they too have a lot of areas that need work. So it's, again, the goal is to cover direct costs. The priority is for our programs to be able to use them first. We want to be sure that this is equitable for all groups, and it is part of the Safety and Security Department. Okay. All right. We have a presentation that will be coming up later in the board meeting, and this is regarding Tech Time. As you know, we have that every year, and it is a wonderful program. It provides a free program for all of our teachers on the effective use of instructional technology. And we know that technology is a powerful tool, but needs to be used wisely. And this helps our teachers know how to do that, supports them in that effort. These sessions provide our staff with an opportunity to learn about the new products that are out there and to develop effective strategies to use in their classrooms. You can see we had a great turnout. This is on their time. They come in during vacation to do this. And we had 264 teachers, 40 presenters, and 12 vendors who participated in the event this past summer. And Terry Meyer, who is the Director for Educational Technology, will be presenting and sharing with you some additional information about Tech Time. But it is a wonderful opportunity for our staff. And there's just a couple of pictures from the event, and it was well attended. We have a bond election coming up November 7th, 2023. This is an important agenda item this evening. The board will be asked to approve Board Resolution 23002, and that will be authorizing the issuance and sale of General Obligation Bond Series 2023. You will also be asked to approve the preliminary official statement that goes with that. This important item will be presented by Chris Muirhead, Bond Counsel, and Eric Harrigan, RBC Capital Markets. And the deadline for online and paper registration for those that will be eligible to vote will be October the 10th. So it's really not that far, and really encourage people in our community to be registered to vote so that you can make your voice heard on these important items. And again, the election is November the 7th. It's for $80 million over 4 years. The question that always comes up every single election is, will this increase your tax rate? And it will not. And in the history of our school district, we have not ever increased the tax rate. And that doesn't mean your tax might not go up if your value of your property goes up. But the tax rate that's being assessed has remained constant for 29 years. Passing the bond will turn that 80 million into approximately 112 million, because we will be eligible for matching funds. And so if we don't get this passed, we won't get that matching fund. So it gives us far more than the 80 million. Really important we get everyone out to vote and again, to make sure that they have a chance to voice their opinion on these issues. And then we have something that happens every year about this time. The board will identify the resolutions that they would like to send to the New Mexico School Boards Association for the upcoming legislative session. And this is just a preliminary list to begin the conversation. The list is based on prior year requests and some of the discussions that we have held in board meetings. So it's not an exclusive list, but it's a good place to start. And as she said, it's easier to start from something on paper than from a blank sheet. So we've tried to provide that for you. The resolutions need to be at the New Mexico School Boards Association by September 11th. And September 11th is a board meeting. So in reality, we need to have them completed and approved by August the 28th and to get them there on time. And I would add, through this process, we go through it every year, it does bear fruit. And many years we have had success in the legislative session. And for example, like last year, resolutions related to improving staff compensation, and especially the compensation for our EAs, was very successful, really has made a difference. And so it is worth the time and effort. and many over the years have worked their way into legislation or into the budget. And so this is the topics on the resolutions. Support for CTE, and that's ongoing. There's still some things we'd like to see, including another shot at Senator Brandt's effort to have a differential for certain CTE instructors. The benefit structure, one of the concerns that we've had is seeing in many ways our benefits packages through NMSIA have declined in terms of what they've covered. We are in the Albuquerque metro area, so we're competitive with Albuquerque, who is not in NMSIA, and we want to be sure that we can provide the best benefits package for all employees in New Mexico, and we really think that needs to be looked at seriously in the next year. Transportation just goes without saying. We do it year after year, hoping that we're going to get that issue resolved. We're still short $2.5 million in transportation, and hope that the state will see fit to fix that. We have some things related to school safety, school behavioral health services, teacher licensure advancement. I would just mention the other two we've spent a lot of time on. We have a process which we're transitioning away from the dossier into something called micro-credentialing. There's a lot of concerns about that transition and the options that our staff have available to them. And so one of the concerns we have is the dossier goes away this year, and yet the other system is not in place. And so people can't get into the classes. They're filled. There's just not that many of them. We have people that are getting to the point where they could advance, but they can't advance because the state system isn't ready. So we are hoping that they will extend the dossier until this gets in place, but also maybe look at some other options such as a master's degree, giving people a choice on how they want to advance to level 2 and level 3. Let that be more of teacher's choice, and we'll see where that goes. But the real concern is the pipeline is narrowing, and we're going to get people in this district who can advance even though they should be able to advance because they can't get the courses. And on top of not getting in the courses are spaced out in such a way that it takes forever to get it done. And I don't know if you saw the Albuquerque Journal editorial on it, but really questioned why those constraints were put in place. If people wanted to work their vacation or wanted to work a week at spring break, it ought to be their choice to do that. And I very much agree with that input. And so we're asking for you to consider a resolution that would have the state look at this process, because we really feel without it, it's going to hurt our staff. And then the last relates to special education and the continuing dilemma that we have of filling all of our special ed spots, and what kinds of incentives might be needed to be sure that we can get every one of those special ed classrooms filled. So those are some of the general topic areas that we hope the board can look at and discuss this evening. Certainly, if there are other ones the board wants to add, this is not an exclusive list. This is just kind of a place to start. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions, comments, or concerns.
Do you have any questions from the board? Jeff, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I have new glasses, and I am really struggling tonight.
I thought they were very nice. All right.
I look up and I look down, and it's
Just take some time to get used to.
Okay, but thank you all.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead to approve our prioritized agenda and proposed time allocation.
Madam President, this is Board Member Jessica Tyler. I will make a motion to approve the prioritized agenda and proposed time allocation.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Noreen Scott. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Okay, we're going to our public comment. So we have no in-person public comment this evening, but we did receive 2 public comments online on our public comment form. Our first is Sabrina Mueller, who, in regards to having an incident report put together for an injury that took place on the playground at her school at Rancho Elementary. Our second is from Raul Sandoval. inquiring about the process for our principals and the interview process that takes place there, with the most recent interview process that we went through at our Rancho High School. And that is all of our public comment for tonight. We are always grateful to receive those. We always love to have them in person and also through our public comment forms. So thank you for sending those. Okay, so now we'll go right into our reports, our one and only report, which is on Tech Time 2023. And Terry Meyer, our Director of Education Technology, will be presenting.
Not just me, I have important people with me.
And I was looking at everyone out
All
there.
right. President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, board, thank you so much for having us talk a little bit about Tech Time. This year we had, oh goodness, what did you say?
246, I
slide.
believe.
Keep going. It was July 20th and 21st. We had at Eagle Ridge Middle School, and we had 264 in attendance. Last year we had 327, so we went down. So I got to step up my game. Mainly, most of the comments are, Terry, get more prizes. And then the second comment is, Terry, you're amazing. No, just joking. That's not the second comment. I'm joking. No, but our overall scores, if you look at the rating, we're at the 9.8 area. Sometimes I get a comment like you didn't offer the food I liked or things like that, so I figure like it's pretty good, right? So our overall feedback's pretty awesome. And we have great presenters. Let's see, what else did I say? I forgot. No, go forward. Forward. That's the same thing. There's some pictures. The picture is a picture of my ed tech group. So they were there. Our theme this year was, you forgot, Top Gun. And so all of us had our own names. And I of course, was Maverick. And then my assistant over here was Goose, right? So Monica Yamada. And then that's a classroom full. And that was one of our AI presentations. Very popular. So artificial intelligence, talking about it with teachers and having them think about how they can use it to improve their practice and whatnot. So, and then this just shows you that most of my elementary schools come. So that's amazing. And a lot of elementary principals attend. I'd like to increase my secondary teachers to come next time. So that just shows you kind of a chart. And we also have quite a few district office folks that come and learn as well. And then this is just the ranking. You can kind of see it. What was your experience like at the Tech Times overall? Fours and fives, which I figure is pretty well. Keep going. I have one that wasn't happy with the workshop. One person. That's pretty good out of 300. Keep going. And then how likely are you to use the workshops you attended in your practice? Because it's very important to me that they take what they learn and use it in their classroom. And then, of course, I have some very important people, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their Tech Time experience, okay? Thanks.
Good evening. I am Tiffany Halen, the ed tech at Sandia Vista. And what I appreciate about Tech Time as a participant is that it provides an opportunity to connect with other educators and to learn about new tech tools that are being used to support instruction. Summer is a great time for this learning as our minds are a little bit less encumbered, so we can really digest and contemplate ways to integrate what we're learning. As a presenter, I appreciate the opportunity to both share ways to effectively use technology to prepare for, deliver, and reflect on instruction, as well as to learn alongside my peers in the collaborative space that Tech Time offers.
I'm Angela Bauer, and I'm the ed tech at Mountain View Middle School. As an ed tech, my goal is always to promote the use of technology within our classrooms. As someone who attends and promotes our events, I strongly believe in fostering that innovation, teaching, learning, and leadership. Attending Tech Time as a presenter and attending workshops has helped me build a really strong community within our school. I still get messages from people asking questions all year long, so I really enjoy that community. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace Calvert. I'm a second grade teacher at Vista Grande Elementary. I started using Google Earth a little bit with the CKLA knowledge last year. But through Tech Time, I learned a lot more about different apps I can use. Terry made it incredibly interactive and a lot of fun with her presentation on App Smackdown. And I learned a lot of different I learned a lot of different apps to use for the students, especially as they're learning about ancient Greece and ancient China and things that they have very little concept of. And so a few different things like Google Earth have been super helpful that I learned through the tech time.
Sheila Booyer, and I'm a 4-5 Montessori teacher, well, Montessori hybrid teacher at Sandia Vista Elementary. And I've attended Tech Time now 2 years and am just amazed at the opportunities that are presented. Being new into the field of teaching, I didn't have a lot of background. So this is an opportunity to explore the technology that's available. And now Lightspeed helps me be more aware of what the kids are doing. So they're not as savvy as they think. So it's been, I'm catching up with them. So I appreciate all that Tech Time offers. It expands my connectivity to the other schools, and it's just really, she makes it a very fun time. So thank you.
I'm Monica Yamada, and I work sidekick over here with Terry Meyer. And I'll speak on behalf of vendors that were able to come out, and it was a great conversation to just work and talk with them. And they were saying they love coming out because it's a great way to get their product into the hands of teachers and hear directly from teachers. How can they improve? What would they like to see? And then just listening to the teachers there, how fun they enjoyed the event, how much they learned. So I was just kind of the PR, just listening to everybody. And again, just the fun time as a community. Teachers getting them riled for the new year. So they're ready to go for the new year. They're there, right? So much for present Tech Time. We do it every year. It's amazing. These are our various vendors that support Tech Time. They give us great prizes. They pay for all the t-shirts. So every teacher gets to go home with a t-shirt, and it's a lot of fun. We gave away a lot of gift cards this year that were donated from various vendors and things we work with. So thank you very much. And do you have any questions for us?
Does anyone have any questions for them?
No questions. Just thank you for taking the time to do that and helping support our teachers keep up with technology. So it's nice that they have you guys to rely on. So thank you.
I love that. Anything else?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you. And, I just love that you had a class on AI. It's
Yes.
like moving full steam ahead. The other night, my husband and I were just playing on one of the art ones and trying to generate art, and it's fun. And so I think it's a great tool. And if we can all figure out how to use it right here in the future. So thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So now we'll go to approve the consent.
I have questions.
On the consent? Should we pull them up? We can pull them off. Is it big, or is it just a quick questions? We can pull them off into our business.
A few of them, but I have a few quick questions.
A few quick questions. Lauren, would it be best for me to put it into business, or can we go over a couple of those things real quick?
There's just a few questions you can answer.
Okay.
If they want to address them separately.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So on the consent agenda, I think on the first thing I saw was the grant or the money was for speech language pathology, but on another piece of paper I saw it was for a teacher. So that was just a comment. But one of the things I saw was where initial budget was going to Southwest Elementary, and I don't know where Southwest Elementary is. So I was wondering if
Maybe it was supposed to be Sandia Vista, I'm guessing.
on the consent. So do we have a program, Southwest Elementary? It's in the consent.
There was, many years ago, there was a Southwest Elementary that was listed until we had a name for it.
Mhm.
And it continues occasionally to pop back up in the state's database. And so I assume that's what it is. And it was ours until we had a name, but we should be able to give you the name of the school that it is. So
That's okay. I just saw it and I said, I don't know.
no, we'll get you that information, but that is the origin of that.
And then there was Intel's $20,000 and it said for STEM, but I was just curious if it's okay to ask that, if that was for the STEM elementary programs? Or is it that or can I ask that detail of a question with the $20,000? Yeah, okay, thank you. And then,
So
and I think that's it.
Is that it?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Cleveland?
we'll get back with you on those, but does anyone want to comment on the STEM? Okay.
Board Member Tripp? Yes, that money is for the elementary STEAM programs. So that 20,000 from Intel. And we're bringing them for a commendation on
Oh,
that. But
good.
yes, it helps with the supplies needed for those new programs established in the elementary schools.
It's wonderful.
And they will be coming. Okay, great.
Well, with that, do you want to give us a motion, Board Member Tripp?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Board Member Tyler will second.
We have a motion by Gary Tripp and a second by Jessica Tyler. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right, thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll move into, I feel like we're just moving through this tonight. So we'll go ahead and move into our, yes, please, Dr. Cleveland, go ahead.
We'll get back with you on those. And just for the board to know, if you have questions like that, and you could get them to them before the board meeting, we will look them up before the board meeting and have an answer for you during the meeting. So sometimes I know board members don't have time to do that, and you're looking at it and you see it. But if you do have one, then shoot it to us, and we'll do that research, and then you can ask that question, then we can respond during the board meeting so everyone gets the answer.
Yeah, sound good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. We don't care when you call us Sunday or you can call us Monday morning. We'll try to have that.
And you can always
information.
put that out on Sunday, Gary, and then they
Yeah,
can
I
pick
mean,
it up on Monday and send over to you. So, but thank you for that. What's good is that we know you're reading it. So that's a good thing. All right, going into our business. So we're going to go ahead and consider the approval of Board Resolution 23-002, authorizing the insurance and sale of general obligation school bond series 2023 and preliminary official statement. So tonight we have with us Chris Muirhead, our bond counsel, along with Eric Harrigan from RBC Capital Markets to present this.
Well, good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Cleveland. Eric Harrigan with RBC Capital Markets. I'm just going to provide just a really quickly introductory statement, and I'll turn it over to Chris Muirhead with the Module Law Firm. So back in May, I came before you and we did a finance plan presentation. This upcoming sale that is before you tonight will be the last of the voter authorized bonds from 4 years ago. This will be the last 10 million. And as Dr. Cleveland mentioned earlier, taking a question to voters this November to keep that program and that tax rate in place that's been around for a long time. I did also want to mention that we did receive the district's preliminary assessed valuation or your tax-based growth. You did have very good growth in your tax base yet again. Your tax base is up to just under 3.3 billion. It's a 9.9% growth, really terrific. That just helps you pay your debt off faster, reduces your interest cost, and may increase your capacity into the future 4 years, in 2027 when you go back to voters. Also, as part of the document that you'll be approving tonight, the board also authorizes the publication and posting of a preliminary official document or statement. And what that document does is that really provides the investors from all over the country talk about who the district is, the security, the parameters of the bonds that the district is selling. To review that document, just look for any material misstatements or omissions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris Muirhead to walk through the resolution.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Cleveland. Chris Muirhead with the Model Firm. This resolution in front of you, as Eric indicated, is the final step of issuing the last set of GO bonds from the 2019 election. It is the official action of the board to approve the issuance and sale of the bonds which the sale will include on or about September 13th and the closing later in September. What this ordinance does, it does approve the form of the bonds. It approves the paying agent and the registrar, which is BOKF. It recognizes that it is an ad valorem property tax, as you've already are familiar with. So it's the most secure of debt. And it also delegates to the superintendent and the executive director of finance to accept the final terms of the bond. So this sets some parameters. $10 million is the par amount. And if you look at page 4 of the resolution, section 4, A through I lists other parameters related to the sale of the bonds. They will be no more than August 1st, 2036. The maximum interest rate would be 10%, which is what the state statute permits. The actual interest rate would be much less than that. As you see, the next parameter, which is the net effective interest rate, shall not exceed 5%. They will be sold through an underwriter who I believe is R.W. Baird. That will be on your POS. And that their underwriting discount or what their compensation will be would not exceed 1%. So at the sale of the bonds, our office and Eric's office will make sure that those terms that are provided are within these parameters. And then the superintendent or the executive director of finance can approve those terms. And then we bring them back to the board at your second September meeting and walk through those. But this is your chance to raise any questions you have about the bond issuance, raise any questions about the sale. As Eric indicated, this resolution approves the form of the POS. Just from a legal standpoint, it's important that if you get an opportunity to read through it. The obligation is on your consultants to make sure it's certainly accurate, and we take that seriously. But it also, as board members, we want, the law requires you guys take a look and make sure that there isn't anything in there that's just flat incorrect, or importantly, just as importantly, that it's not missing something that is important to the school district's financial health or operations. So if you do see something like that, please reach out to Eric's office or my office, and we'll make sure that that is in there. Really, the rest of it is kind of standard boilerplate representations. It is a tax exempt bond, so there are, as you see toward the end in some of the later sections, IRS code requirements and representations regarding the use of the proceeds, that they be used within a reasonable period, 3 years, and that whatever you invest is done in a way that doesn't violate the Internal Revenue Code. And our role as your bond counsel does encompass the tax consequences and tax advice. So we will make sure at the time of issuance you're in compliance, and moving forward that you remain in compliance. Happy to answer any questions about the resolution or the POS. I'm sure Eric is as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here also. And we did have an opportunity, which is great, that this was all in our folder, so we've been able to look through everything. Does anyone have any questions for on either side? Go ahead, Gary.
I have one quick question, maybe for Eric.
Great.
And I think it's accurate, but I'm not sure. Does the SB 9 that the voters will vote on, does it relate to the 9.9% increase in growth, or is that a question for you to answer?
So Madam President, Member Tripp, so it is in part, part of that overall tax base. So that 2 mil levy, which the district collects and uses that money for, capital projects, et cetera. As your tax base grows, so does the revenue that tax base generates. So the growth of your tax base does benefit the revenue that the district receives from the SB 9 mill levy. It's a little bit different than your GEO bonds because that's sort of pay-as-you-go type of funds. You receive that funding over a period of 6 years, at which point you have to go back to voters for renewal of that mill levy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
And then Dr. Cleveland, did you have anything else on this one? Okay. Do you recommend approval for this?
I recommend approval. And one of the, just a comment, our SB 9 allocation needs to be adjusted at the state level. And that's probably the one thing the board should be most concerned about is trying to get that adjustment for SB 9 because it is not particularly favorable to our district. But that being said, it's an extremely important part of the election. We really do need folks to get out. The bonds normally build new things or are major repairs and are very important. But SB 9 picks up the slack for smaller projects, but also for areas like band equipment or for smaller kinds of things we don't have any other way to pay for. So the SB 9 I've always tried to share is 2 mil levy. It's for the smaller things that are vital to the operation of the school district. The bonds are larger things, equally important, but in order to have a healthy district, both need to be in place. And our voters have been very supportive over the years and have approved both. And we're, very hopeful that they will see fit to do that again. But SB 9 match is something that needs to be continued to be monitored. Thank you.
Madam President, this is Board Member Tyler. I'd like to make a motion for the approval of Board Resolution number 23-002, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation school bond series 2023 in the preliminary official statement.
This is Secretary Noreen Scott. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, second by Noreen Scott. And JC, can you take a roll call vote for us, please?
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it. Okay. Next will be our facilities use agreement. And we have Mike Baker, our Chief of Operations, who will be presenting.
Good evening, Galbraith. Dr. Cleveland, members of the school board. I think Dr. Cleveland summarized the facility use fees and agreement very well. So I will not add to that other than essentially what we're asking is that our fees, we're requesting a 10% increase in our fees, and that essentially is to cover our costs. And so we want to have a balance between, we certainly don't want to overcharge community members for the use of the facilities. Those facilities are owned by RRPS and the community, and they have been very generous with bond money. So we want to continue that, but it's also very important that we capture our costs for this program, and as Dr. Cleveland indicated earlier, that we use this money to go back into the facilities and to keep those facilities in good working order. So with that, I stand for questions.
Questions from the board on this side? Gary, any questions?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we pass the facility use agreement fees.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Gary Tripp and a second by Noreen Scott. And then JC, if you'll take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to add?
Fine.
You sure?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just say one thing. We need it to be able to maintain what we have. And we are seeing huge wear and tear on our facilities. We want them to be available for the community, but we also have to keep them up. And so this doesn't do all of that. It helps. It helps. And certainly some is bond and some is SB 9 as we try to replace some of the facilities that need updating or repairing or whatever, or fields, as you saw. So it is important. It doesn't cover all of it. And we really do try. This isn't we've been asked before, is this a money-making operation for the district? I want to assure the community it really is not at all that. It's just trying to recover the costs from that use. And we have other funds to do it sometimes. So we appreciate your support of this recommendation.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Cleveland. And I do, and I want, as a community standpoint, we want to make sure that we only raise these as we have to. And so I know that we've had to raise these, and I think it wasn't even that long ago. Right. But if we could always just be, have that caution as we move ahead and as we do those things, because we do want the community and our, to be able to use those facilities. They're wonderful facilities. So thank you.
I do have one question on the facility use. I don't find a specific board policy that covers facility use agreements and the governance of that or the process for which that occurs. I think that would be a helpful additional policy. That way it's more transparent to the public on how those decisions are made. So I'd like to make a recommendation that we work on a policy to add for the facility use agreement.
Thank you.
We'll follow up on that for sure.
be good. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going through our next item. So our next items are our resolutions. And so as we go through them, I was actually gonna, so give me 1 second. I'm gonna we have one of our board members is a part of the committee that approves these with New Mexico School Board Association. And so it is important, and Dr. Cleveland talked to this point earlier, is that these resolutions are going to New Mexico school boards. It comes in a group from all of the different districts. And I believe board member Tripp said it took about 6 hours to go through some of these last time. And so he's gonna give us a little bit about the process. And so I'm grateful that he's willing to do that and what they look for and to help us as we kind of go through all of these resolutions. So we're going to be looking through, just so you know, it's about 7 resolutions that the district has recommended, that we do not have to stick with these, or and these are just to help us to get moving and started on it. So it's items C through I that we will be talking about tonight. So I'm going to turn some time to board member Tripp to talk about.
Thank you. I won't take long, Beth. But, so the resolutions, there's about 38 school board members from around the state of New Mexico that come together and vote on each resolution that's presented by every school district. And last year we had a little over 80 resolutions presented to the committee, and it took 6 hours to go through them. Pretty heated debate. So I just wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say that I have recommendations on each one.
Okay, we'll go through
From based on that. So I don't mean to be long-winded, but just from going through the process with fellow board members around the state and trying to get more unified, I think I have some suggestions. I don't know if you agree with them or not, but just want to put that out there.
Okay, so as we go through each one, if you want to give some of those insights, I think that would be helpful. I think it's great that we do have a board member that's serving on that committee. And what we're really trying to do is just try to get a whole group of people who are behind some of these resolutions. And they do not adopt all of our resolutions, though often I think they do adopt a lot of Rancho Public Schools resolutions. So I'm going to turn now our time to Beth, and you can give more about the process, or you can just go into them.
Good evening, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, and members of the board. As you know, tonight we're talking about your resolutions for the New Mexico School Boards Association. And as Gary said, they use these resolutions in helping to develop their priorities for the legislative session. As you know, the next session is a 30-day session or a budget session. And I also think it's important that you know I still come back in the fall, and we still as a district identify our own priorities that we take forward and that we really work on during the legislative session. Last year, we used some of your resolutions to help guide those, but I just want the board to know that that's always something that we'll come back and discuss again, and we can add or change at that time your priorities for Rio Rancho Public Schools. So these ones are really for the NMSBA. And so we'll just go through those. The first 5, which is resolution 23003 through 23007, are pretty much hybrid versions of resolutions that you submitted last year. So the first one, we have investing in New Mexico's future through career technical education. And this has to do with getting those funds for CTE. And so I'll go ahead and let board member Tripp submit your feedback.
Gary was better because I don't want you to be mad at me. But, so on the CTE resolution, my thoughts are that this is a resolution for K-12 public schools. It's not a resolution for charter schools or businesses or secondary education. And the New Mexico School Boards Association comes together as people that represent K-12 public schools. So that's one thought process I have. The other one is, I believe it's the third paragraph, whereas I thought should be the first thing, which is the most important, I think, is whereas developing and expanding the New Mexico workforce and economy and providing opportunities for high school graduates, because we're K-12, requires changing the current educational structure and then we go on to the next whereas. So the first two whereas either we shouldn't have or we can reword it. And then the other thought process is that the be it resolved should be one paragraph and that we could try to make all these fit in one page with a decent font. So that's my thoughts on CTE. And I know our partners may not like it, but that's our job as board members is to represent our public school, and we don't fight, we don't get paid all this money to fight for charter schools and secondary education. Not to, even though I have a lot of good friends in those areas.
So what are thoughts, I guess, on that? And Dr. Cleveland, I think sometimes we put those things in there because we want to make sure our charter schools know that, that we appreciate them. But what are some of the thought process and on Gary's comments, if anyone wants to add to
The
that?
rest of the board.
Okay. Anyone else from the rest of the board on Gary's comments?
I mean, I think that it's trying to capture the idea of CTE and what that entails. And so what we're trying to say is that CTE is dependent upon the of being inclusive of our community and our other stakeholders. So I think that's what it's trying to capture, but I understand your point, Gary, and that this is coming. I mean, we can't necessarily speak for them. We're speaking on behalf of the board.
I agree with your beginning statement that the third one should kick it off. And I think you could include the first whereas under that because it does fit very well there. But it is important to talk about the fact that it's expanding New Mexico's workforce and economy to provide opportunities for our students, which to me is the most critical piece to this.
Go ahead, Dr. Cleveland.
Okay, I think, again, what is the ask? And that for me, the one that is really the ask is the one that says that we currently lack a mechanism to fund non-recurring startup costs and adequate ongoing operational costs. And so while both are equally important, and they are both very important, a French 1 class costs a whole lot less than a welding 1 class.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not any real differentiation for the fact that these are very expensive, very high levels of equipment, and that equipment wears out and has to be replaced on a regular basis to protect the safety of the students and to make sure the programs are really training people for the current workplace. And so the concern I think school districts have is that the weighted unit for CTE is insufficient to pay for it. And therefore it has to come out of other programs or other areas. And one that Senator Brandt worked on last year was in some cases the instructors for some of these programs. Simply, you have to pay more because of what they get paid in the private sector. We can't get them to teach in our schools without a differential. So it may be, that there are certain instructors in certain programs that you need some additional funding to be able to recruit those people. So it's really the cost to open a CTE building, as we know, is very, very expensive, and you have to have that up front. But where the real challenge is long-term is paying for those courses over a long period of time and refurbishing the equipment, keeping it current, all of that. And again, it's not to make a value judgment that one is more important than the other, just a reality that CTE programs generally cost so much more to operate. And that has been the concern all along of districts. So I think that's addressed, and I think it's addressed well. But that's the ask. The ask is that we get more money through a weighted unit and through a differential for staffing when that's necessary. We're not staffing right now. CNM is staffing, but it's still important for those districts who aren't doing that. And we don't know what our future will be. For example, we might do health professions separately, and we would have to pay the instructors.
Okay. So Dr. Cleveland,
Hopefully we'll do it with CNM.
well, what is your thought then? So I'm thinking with board member Tripp, so we have supports on that last page, right? So it has dedicated ongoing recurring revenue streams to support school districts, charter schools, and colleges. So board member Tripp, are you saying we should just have like public school districts there and take out charter schools and colleges on ours? Or what is that your thought process?
Yeah, that's my thought process because the CTE programs around the state focus on their district only when they were out recruiting dollars.
Right. But I feel like for us in particular, our CTE is founded on a partnership with CNM and they're sharing the cost with us. And so I think it's important to honor that partnership and the agreement that we have with them to include them in that.
I agree with the CNM pieces. It is a partnership, and I know they're struggling as well to be able to find the resources to do it. And so I agree. I think higher ed and school districts need to work together on that. With regards to charters, there are some charters that are CTE based, and so I would assume we would in a pretty strong fight if you pull it out. But that's just my thought.
I agree with your sentiment of where you're coming from, Gary, but I think as far as making an argument to the state legislature and the governor to support this, that including charter schools and all public schools makes it a stronger argument.
They have their own lobbyists though, to fight for them, but however we vote, that I'll push it 100% at the meeting, but I just don't think, I don't represent charters or
the colleges. So do you think when there's that debate, so you're in there for a 6-hour debate, is this, you feel that this is something that's?
No, I don't think it'll be a debate. It's just something that would be my own opinion. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we could leave that in without it being troublesome. Now, as far as moving that paragraph, I guess Noreen said that she agreed with moving that paragraph. Is everyone else good with moving that paragraph up? Okay. So anything else on this one? So we do not have to, we don't have to vote on these tonight, but if you guys feel comfortable with where that one sits at this point, then we can vote on.
I'll make a motion, Madam President, to approve board resolution number 23-003, support for career technical education, with the amendment of changing the third paragraph to the first paragraph.
I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Jessica Tyler, second by Noreen Scott. And JC, if you could take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Awesome. Thank you.
I just want to say it's like a mean trick to have board meetings on a Monday when your brain's not like fully
know.
functioning yet.
Yeah, and it has been a Monday. I will say that. Okay, go ahead, Beth.
All right, and then the second one, and I want to thank Kim Vesley because these first 5 she wrote. So
Did she?
yeah,
We miss her.
because they're from last year. But the second one is on the benefits packages. We did adjust in there because the legislature, if you remember last year, they did make some adjustments to those tiers. However, we'd like to see the rates increase for what they're paying for employees. And so this one is more on the benefits packages. And I'm just looking right now, that second, be it further resolved, I think we could remove that. Because really what we want is to increase the benefit packages for employees.
Okay. So you're looking at the be it further resolved, is that?
Yeah.
what you're looking at? And you're saying we could remove that
I
one?
think so, yeah. To try and get them all on one page for board member Tripp. I think that's a great idea.
Since we've already agreed to this last year, I would like to, for us to consider approval of Board Resolution 23004.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. We have a second. I was going to ask if you had more that you wanted to talk about.
I would have jumped in there if I did.
You're good. Okay. Okay. Any other questions before we go for the vote? Okay. So we have a motion by Noreen Scott and a second by Gary Tripp. And then JC, if you could take a roll call vote for us on this one.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Did I
Yes,
make
please.
just a quick comment?
Yes, please do.
One of the parts of this, and I guess we look at it again and be sure that it's clear. But one of the things that we really want, in addition to the percentages, we want to really be sure that the quality of the total package is as strong as it can be. And that's particularly important to us in this area, and I'll tell you why. You have the only one school district in New Mexico is not under NIMSI, and that's the Albuquerque Public School District. And in some cases, they have better benefits for less money, and our question is why. And it is a competitive environment today for employees. And I applaud them for their package. And we really give them credit for that. But we need to be sure for recruitment in this district and the whole metro area, whether it's us, Las Moriarty, Edgewood, or whatever, that our packages stay fairly consistent. And we're really concerned that over time, the whole NIMSIA package has actually not stayed up. And there's so many folks in APS that we know that they bargain with the same people we do, in terms of NIMSIA. And so we just would like them to take a really hard look at the benefits package to make sure that it meets the needs of our employees. It gets more and more costly to have a baby. It gets more and more costly to have surgery. There's just a lot of things like that. And one of the things that they are looking at, I know they've talked about, it's not come forward, but will be a big thing for school boards to look at. And that is the possibility of moving all public employees under one plan at some point. Several states have done that. And in doing that, they have a mixed bag as usual. But a lot have been able to lower the premiums and increase the benefits. What we're saying, I think, is that they need to take a look at all of that to be sure that our benefits package meets the needs of the employees of this state. But for us, particularly, it was under the New Mexico Public School Insurance Authority. And there's real concern that we are losing ground in that area. And I don't know if that's communicated. After I thought about it as strongly as maybe we would want to communicate that. So, but that's part of it. Certainly the percentages are extremely important, and that's not in any way negate that. But it's the total package that is so important to our families, and we want to be sure we get the best for our families we can.
Yeah.
We can look at some stronger language for when we set our priorities for the legislature too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking is, as we move forward in ours, we should definitely look at those. So any other comments on that resolution as we go to our next? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cleveland.
All right, resolution 23005. This is a hybrid from your resolution last year. It included instructional materials last year. But as you know, the legislature funded those this year. And so now this resolution is solely focused on transportation costs. And as you heard Dr. Cleveland say in her presentation earlier, again, we're still short money in transportation.
Yeah. So, well, and Gary, I have a question for you. So when these sort of resolutions come up on transportation to this committee, it hurts us really, really bad, but it doesn't hurt as many other groups in the state. And so I don't know how a resolution like this would do through that committee.
Because of this resolution. And I think this resolution should be the first resolution, or school safety should be the first resolution. But anyway, politically speaking, I think we should partner up, or I should make efforts to partner up with the mid-size districts that are on that committee to come up with some agreements, because the mid-size districts, and Mr. Baker might correct me if I'm wrong, but several of the mid-size districts are the same as us with the density factor in transportation. So Las Cruces Public Schools, so those school districts, there's not many of them. So we're in the minority here. So I'm hoping to make a strong effort with the other districts that are being affected to get this resolution passed, because this resolution has not passed because your small districts in the state of New Mexico are being misinformed. And I really hope that people are paying attention that are watching this, because when the budget, when Representative Harper and Senator Brandt and a few other quality leaders from around the state made a push for this with the governor, it was not harming any district in the state of New Mexico. But I think our small to close to mid-sized districts made it a point that they believed it was hurting their budgets. And so without fighting, we need to really be intellectual about and trying to help. And I think Representative Harper has really taken the lead on this, but we really need to help our legislators educate the state of New Mexico. And I know we need to educate our fellow board members that this is not hurting the budget, the overall each school district's budget. So it's important to us. This one is to me, it may be the second highest priority next to always school safety. But my thought on this is that makes number 5, the paragraph, kind of the strongest paragraph, and maybe add it with Beth's great writing skills, that the SCG allocates fewer dollars to our district into several districts in the state of New Mexico. And that needs to be pointed out as number 1. But so that's kind of my only request with this resolution.
Is that we prioritize that 5th paragraph.
Kind of
Well, it's kind of the
our
6th
priority.
comes right after it. So I don't know how to redo that one.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jessica Tyler.
I was just saying, I think I understand it's like it's an important paragraph, but it also flows well with the information being laid out. So it goes from like that that the state statute requires us to provide transportation. There's fixed costs. The funding for transportation is done through the separate formula. So I feel like it progresses logically in how it's laid out. But if you guys feel strongly, we can change it.
I'm a little bit worried about it causing, like you were saying, it flows well, but I agree that this is the number 1, right? Important that needs to be seen.
And I'm not a writer, but I'll do my best to work with the other districts that are affected. So hopefully we can get it passed.
Underline it.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, can we underline? Dr. Cleveland, go ahead.
Well, if you want to take it and just summarize it, it's just every district's transportation should be paid, period. And that's just the easiest and the most defensible, and everybody should have their bill paid. And so, looking at Las Cruces, for example, you mentioned density isn't their factor. And so if it's basically a density, then Las Cruces is probably not on board, because that's not what's impacting them. There are other things, though, that are impacting them that are equally important. And so this game that we play about a formula that has winners and losers makes no sense. But I believe, based on the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, is not legal. And so that's what the judge said, is that it should be paid. There are different, right now we're estimating at least a third of the districts in New Mexico did not get theirs paid. Last year when they asked APS, they said, well, we didn't run a deficit this year, but the reason we didn't run a deficit is we just didn't pick the kids up.
It's crazy.
We had the money. So I think there are different reasons for different districts. So the real point is we're trying to create a formula that is very hard to create when districts are so different demographically, in terms of enrollment, there's so many factors. They can't come up with a neat little formula. But it would seem to me that you could look at just submitting your bills. If the bills are legitimate, are defensible, you can show you paid gas, fuel, you paid your drivers, you paid, their maintenance, and you can show that those are what your bills before, they should pay those bills. And that's really what we've been trying to do through Yazzie Martinez now for 10 years, is to get those bills paid regardless of what are the unique circumstances in every district that are different. It's very different in different districts. And yet their stories are just as compelling as ours. And they are just as frustrated and angry as we are and not being able to get it done. So I don't know, from my perspective is unless the districts can show, that they're not doing something legal or ethical or whatever, those bills should be paid. And it's the struggle, I think, is the formula, creating one that produces that result.
So Dr. Cleveland, what is wrong with just making the simple statement that you made in our resolution that our expenses should be paid? Every school district's expenses for transportation should be paid. I mean, that seems like a simple statement. It's very clear. There's no ambiguities, and it's fair to everyone.
I agree with you.
We could start with that statement. I think that would be good.
Beth, I say that needs to be our resolution.
Period.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could just put it, do you want to just put it at the beginning of the document and then go into the rest? I think that would be good. Okay.
So that's my motion.
So, okay. So with that change, you go to approve it.
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Noreen Scott and a second by Gary Tripp. And then if you'll take a roll call vote for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler, Board President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Beth.
All right, resolution 23006. This is support for school safety. So funding for safety needs.
I move approval of resolution 23-006, school safety.
I second. I just ask that you look at the language overall.
Okay. We have a second.
Did you have specific?
Yeah. Why don't you give some specifics really quick?
Well, the only specific was the first one says about communities. And when I read that, I thought, okay, we need to really support, as if I was a state legislator, do I need to really support every police department? Because we're talking about communities, or are we talking about every school? Every school, regardless of who they are, needs a safe environment for every kid. So we're talking about schools, not communities. I know, or maybe we're talking both, but schools isn't on that very first sentence. So that's all.
I think we ought to accept that amendment.
Thank you.
We're changing. I know, I'm going to be like the one dissenting all of these, but I guess it's saying, we're specifically saying student and staff safety is a concern for our communities, which I think is trying to convey that it's not just our concern, but it's a concern for our communities as well, that every citizen wants our kids to be safe. To me, that's how I read it. So I like that language because it's trying to convey that it's not just the school district's concern, but it's our community's concern that our schools are safe.
Yeah, which we have been seeing as we had someone come in to give public comment not too long ago who in the community who is asking us to make sure that we are safe. So what do you think with that, Board Member Tripp, as you read it that way? So our motion, has it been amended or are we going with our original motion?
Well, the motion has it.
Yeah, we haven't.
We have a motion on the floor in a second.
Okay, so we'll go
Yeah.
to approve it. Yeah, so we're going to go to a vote if everyone is good. Okay. JC, will you take a roll call
Vice
vote?
President
Please?
Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay,
You
thank
can
you.
get as is.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, and it took me a second. Sorry about the awkward in between. I didn't print that one up for myself, so I was like, where are we? So that was the awkward silence for me at the beginning there. Go ahead, Beth.
All right, resolution 23-007. This is your last resolution from last year. That's the same resolution, adequate support and funding for school mental and behavioral health services.
No, I do have
Yeah, please.
probably a dissenting comment. But when I looked at all of these and I looked at this one, I came and visited with Dr. Cleveland, but to me, what is the purpose of public education K-12? And it's to teach children And the more we get into social emotional learning of children, and the more we get into taking care of all the kids' needs, all of a sudden we become the scapegoat to society for every time something goes wrong. And I kind of think that we need to get back to just, let's teach math, let's teach technology, let's teach reading, let's teach writing, let's teach listening. So my thought is that we don't have this resolution because we need to make a strong statement about school safety and about transportation. In fact, those are my only two resolutions that I feel so strongly about. But I would totally support this 100%, but I'm not going to vote for it because I think we keep opening ourselves up as educators. We keep opening educators up to being the fix-it-all for everything. And we're trying our best with the money they give us to have good counselors and have good services and well-rounded education for children. But I think, where do we stop? So that's just my 2 cents.
No, and I think I like what you're saying because I agree with you in so many ways. At the same time, it is in the schools is the issue. And so now that it's there, we also have to do something, right? As we have these students who are having these extreme, behavior and different mental things that are going on. And so I agree with what you're saying. Like, we shouldn't have to be the fix it all. And yet we are there, and we have students who are, and I know that there's even times where the state has pushed back students back into our district, because the state can't take care of them. And so then we're expected to take care of these students, and we don't have the means to do that. And so that's where I'm concerned with having the resolution, as far as having the resolution. But I do agree with you, Gary, on that, is that as we get all the funding for this, then yes, the expectation is that the school district deals with it. So other board members.
Yeah, the article that Dr. Cleveland referred to in yesterday's Albuquerque Journal, APS was making the point that this mental health initiatives and funding is in their view, the preventative step ahead of disciplinary action. I don't agree. I think it's a tandem issue. I think that we have to identify and assist students so that they can learn, so that we can mitigate some of these outside influences that are disrupting their ability to learn, and unfortunately disrupting our ability to teach. And so I heard what APS was saying in that article. I thought it was a very interesting point. I think you can't do one or the other. I think you have to do both. And so that's why I feel that mental health has to be addressed.
I agree. Jessica Tyler, anything on this one?
Well, I mean, I agree with your comments in so many ways, Gary, but I also see, other professions. For example, the profession I came from in law enforcement, we're not only expected to, but we're mandated by the state, required to get training in mental health, because it isn't something that we can avoid. And like Amanda said, it's something, unfortunately, that our teachers are forced to deal with every day. And, police officers get dispatched to handle these calls, but the teachers are in these classrooms with these kids for 7 hours a day or an hour a day every day. And so I think that, this is part of the world that we live in. And so they already have that expectation to recognize and deal with these behaviors. And so then it's incumbent upon us to ensure that they have the correct training and support to do that. And so to me, that's the spirit of the resolution, is to make sure that they have that proper training and support.
I totally agreed with what you were saying, that we're putting too much on education. However, I see so many failures in the Child Protective Services area and in so many other areas that strongly affect us. As we sit here, we have children coming to school who don't have their basic needs met, and that is causing some severe behavioral issues.
Jeff Morgan, any thoughts? Sorry, I keep forgetting about, I don't forget about you, but.
I don't have any question. I enjoyed the conversation.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Cleveland, do you want to add anything?
Just the comment that I wish people maybe had an understanding of how great the needs are right now, and the need for counselors and for other types of mental health support. There's just more than we've seen in the past. And so one of the lessons I guess we learned out of COVID, it's going to be a while before that impact is really gone. And so in the short term, that need to be able to provide that support, teachers truly can't do it all. And so the need to have that counseling support and other mental health supports, I help those teachers in the classroom who don't have the time, or they just don't have the time, and in many cases not the expertise to be dealing with those mental health issues, and they don't want to deal with that. And so I think additional help in our schools. You look at the size of our high schools, look at how many counselors we have for that many kids, and so many of them have needs. So I agree with Noreen. I think it's a comprehensive approach it's going to take to resolve some of these issues. So safety and mental health, it's a series of things, not one thing, that will help us move forward.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve Board Resolution number 23-007, School Behavioral Health Services.
This is Noreen Scott. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Noreen Scott. And then JC, if you could take a roll call vote
Vice
for us.
President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
No.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I actually, as we were going through this, I do think Board Member Tripp's trying to say, we don't need so many. I think is that what you're trying to tell us, is we don't need so many that are going out. And so that is, I think that is important for us to realize. The hard thing is now we have our list and they're all very good. And so I think we also want to approve it.
There's a little book I'm going to get for you all. But it's by a gentleman by Mr. Vollmer, who says schools can't do the job alone. It was written several years ago, but he shows throughout his book all the things that have been added to public education over the years, and it is amazing. And sometimes you wonder how people have time to do the main mission that they're assigned to do because of all of the additional things that we have. But that's why we've seen such a growth in support positions over time. And I know that's a discussion in the legislature. But we're certainly not there. But there are some districts that now have the same number of support positions as they do teachers, given all of the other jobs they're trying to accomplish. And that's kind of shocking to me, that school system, the number one number of employees are not teachers now in some districts.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's
All right. Resolution 23-008. This is a new resolution in reference to the teacher licensure advancement system. Dr. Cleveland did a great job highlighting this resolution in her presentation. The first part of the resolution kind of goes through what the current process is and makes point that the dossier program, we're in the final year of that, 23-24, and then that goes away. Some of the concerns we've heard with micro-credentialing, you can only take one credentialing class each quarter. So if you have a teacher who completes their 3 years for their experience and then decides they want to work on getting to the next level and figures out, oh my gosh, I have to take 5 credentialing classes, they can only take 1 per quarter, which then sets them out a year and a quarter before they can even apply for advancement. Sometimes those classes are full, you can't even get into a class, that puts them back another. So we feel like the system needs to be reviewed. We want to ensure that teachers have options. Maybe there's other ways that they can advance that meets their time frame a little better. So this tries to lay that out. And what we're really asking, we're urging the governor to direct the PED to convene a task force to develop a licensure advancement system, and also to expand the dossier system for 3 years until that can be completed.
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's a recommendation, and it may not make sense. So tell me if it doesn't. But I think that the committee or the approval needs to be from an accredited university or somebody that's accredited from the PED, because we have a lot of programs out there that districts love and other districts say, they're not coming into my district. So as far as the task force, I don't know if we make recommendations, but it'd be nice if 1/3 of them, 1/3 of the task force consisted of teachers, 1/3 of the task force consisted of school administrators, and 1/3 of the task force consisted of higher education. It's just, and I don't know if you get that detailed in a resolution. So that, I don't know if this makes sense or not, or maybe it's a letter that goes with the resolution. But I think accredited or approval from the PD, because there's a lot of things out there that people can tag on to, in order to get their name into a district. So, thanks.
I'd be okay with adding that to ours.
Okay.
Okay. So with that addition,
1 second, Noreen.
Oh.
We have Billy Helene who is here, and would you like to give a little comment on this resolution? I don't know if you've had time to really read it, and so if you would feel comfortable commenting, but you're welcome to come up. But like I said, I always tell my students you can pass. So just as you were here with us today.
Well, President Galbraith, Dr. Cleveland, board members, thank you very much for offering me an opportunity. Beth and I did talk the other day about this, and something that we hear from staff all the time is they want opportunities to advance in their current role. And that's for teachers. It goes for all of our staff, really. But teachers especially are interested in finding ways to advance that are not especially onerous. And, quite frankly, I did the dossier both times from my level 1 to level 2, level 2 to level 3. It's a pain. It's a lot of work. But what I'm hearing is this micro-credentialing is so much worse because it takes a lot more time over the extended period that it takes to get from a level 1 to a level 2 to level 3. And then quite frankly, for someone like me, I got my master's degree and then I had to turn around and prove to them that I had just gotten my master's degree and that I was capable of having my license at a level 3. And that's silly to me when I had just taken 2 years of classes and written a 45-page paper on an education topic. And so this resolution would help because then our educators will have an opportunity to potentially do something that's less onerous, more directed toward what they're doing in their classroom, rather than something that could take an extended period of time and end up resulting in something that may not be a good outcome for them, potentially. So I think I personally, and I think I can speak on behalf of the staff, am very much in support of having the PED convene a task force to look at what this could look like, because I think the people we need to ask are the people who are actually doing it rather than having it come from someone else. So
how did you feel about Mr. Tripp's additions to it?
Very good, actually. I like those additions. I think they're helpful, very helpful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for getting that. Go ahead,
I'd like to say a couple things. In this day that we're living in, people want choice, and they want to fit things that work for them. And Renee and I were talking about that. Maybe part of this should be choice. And so for me, at least the dossier would seem to need to stay in place for 3 more years until they get this other worked out. Because what's happening right now is our teachers can't get in the classes. There's a bottleneck, and they're going to stop, and they're not going to be able to advance at all because the classes aren't ready. And on top of that, you can only take one, I think, a quarter, and there's all kinds of constraints. And when we ask about why the constraints, the response is we don't have enough classes. So we've got to keep it down, and keep it tight. So, maybe an option would be the dossier or micro-credentialing or a master's. And one of the concerns I have for our teachers is the micro-credentialing and the dossier. We have a very mobile teaching force today. Those two will do nothing when you move to another state. But a master's degree is always portable, and you can take it and you can go anywhere. The other two, and if you leave the state of New Mexico, and of course we don't want people to leave, but sometimes people have to leave, they have done all this work, and there is absolutely going to be no recognition of that work in another state. So I feel we have really shortchanged our teachers when we do that. On level two, level two, I think any one of those three should count. And for level three, maybe we need to rethink it altogether. But if you've done a really good master's program, why do you need to do this micro-credentialing? I mean, really, what's the purpose of it, of doing both of those? And they're having trouble finding people to teach the micro-credentialing. They're having problems writing the curriculum. Well, that's what higher ed does. And so, I don't know. Level three needs to look different. The last comment is way back, several administrations back, Hannah Scandera, who I didn't agree with on a lot of things, but one of the things she did say, I very much agreed on, she said New Mexico is the most restrictive of any of the states she was aware of in terms of the timeline for advancement. And because it takes so long to advance, people leave our state. And so she wanted to, instead of going for the 3 years, she wanted to go to 2. She wanted a fourth option, which was student performance, which I guess you could debate either for or against. But it's a long time before you get up to that level 3 salary. And you look at other states and doesn't take as long. We've been, Mike Chavez I was looking for, I don't see him here this evening, but they do exit interviews with people who leave our district. And one of the things that comes up on several times, it takes too long to advance in New Mexico. And I'm going somewhere else. So does it really need to take that long before you get to level 3? And I don't know, how, if the union has any thoughts about that or has taken any kind of position on that. But, you wonder why it does take so long in our state and it takes a much shorter time in many others. And if you're working to get to that salary, it's an incentive to go somewhere else. So I think that we do need some work. And I do agree the resolution to convene a task force. I was trying to think the last one that we did on this is probably 15 or maybe even older years old. And we have completely revamped our advancement licensure system in New Mexico. So it's past due. And hopefully this might gain some traction. But we're gonna hit a wall next year as more and more people can advance.
I have one other thought on this. If we're recommending that they develop a task force, that those things take time. So could we include in the resolution that they continue to allow the current 3 practices for an extended school year? Because otherwise we're going to make a change and then we're going to be stalemating by asking. It's there? Where is that at? Sorry, I missed it. I was looking for it on both of these.
First, therefore be it resolved, extend the dossier program for 3 years until a new system can be developed.
Okay, thank you. I probably read past it. Thank you.
One
All right,
last
I did.
comment on the dossier to Billy Heelan's point. We have a very high percentage of our teachers who make it through the dossier in this district. We have good support, and the folks who work with our teachers, we generally have very good results. But what is the challenge with the dossier, especially across the state, is that you'll take 2 dossiers that look almost the same, and the teachers have gone through the same identical training process, and one gets accepted and one doesn't. And no one can explain why this one made it and this one didn't. And it's terribly demoralizing for our staff to have gotten, and you look at them and you think, well, I can't tell the difference in terms of the quality of the 2. And so it's that lack of quality control and consistency that is frustrating with the dossier, in addition to the amount of time. So it's not that it's perfect, but if a teacher wanted to choose the dossier rather than doing the micro-credentialing, then I don't see any harm. It lets them have their choice. But I also think a master's degree is equally good, and then whatever they want to look at for level 3. Most states really reward their school districts for having a high percentage of teachers with master's degrees. When we go and advertise to bring companies into New Mexico, that's one of the things they look at. What's the percentage of your teaching force that have advanced degrees? Well, when you redirect people out of these programs to dossiers and micro-credentialing, that number goes down, and it hurts our ability to recruit businesses to the state of New Mexico. Again, I don't think a teacher should be forced to do the MA. They really don't want to do it, but it's in their best interest financially, in terms of portability, in terms of the quality. if I were back, again, making that decision, I would be more interested in that master's first. But I also think it matters in terms of our recruitment of businesses to our community.
Thank you, Dr. Cleveland.
I'll make a motion to approve board resolution number 23-008, the teacher licensure advancement, with the addition of the language spelling out the makeup of the task force.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Gary Tripp, and if you'll take a roll call for us.
Vice President Morgan,
Yes.
Secretary Scott,
Yes.
Board Member Tripp,
Yes.
Board Member Tyler,
Yes.
President Galbraith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Awesome, thank you. Okay.
All right, our final resolution, 23-009, meets board member Tripp's expectations. It's one page. And it really has to do with increased funding for positions that support our students with the highest needs, with a particular focus on special education, to ensure competitive compensation packages that reflect their unique challenges. So as you know, there's a shortage of special education teachers. And so this has been one of those areas where he feels important if they could maybe look at funding those positions at a higher level. It'd help us recruit.
Okay. Go ahead, Board Member Tripp.
So when I read this, and just to give you for discussion purposes, I believe it was the Gadsden School District last year actually wrote this up for ESL endorsement because of their high level of monolingual students. And it was sad how bad the vote was defeated. And when the special education situation came up, it was debated about how the larger school districts in the state's funding would be heavily increased versus the smaller school districts. Kind of goes to that transportation factor. And maybe I wasn't clear with the density, but it kind of goes to that. So just to let you know what goes on in that room, you've got mid-size versus small, and you have large versus everybody and everything else. And we're trying to get one resolution. I don't know where this will go because it sounds like Gadsden, and it came up last year. This will only be my second year doing it. So it'd be good to go fight for it, but I don't know where it'll go when you see those small districts thinking when they only have 4 special education teachers, for example, versus us having 400, so they think that dollars are going to be reduced. I don't know why, but they think that. So
That's unfortunate because it's a very important, resolution. So other questions or comments on this one?
I think we thought it was going to pass last year because David Abbey with LFC was behind it. And what he was looking at was the percentages of classrooms with these highest need children that went unfilled. And so we simply couldn't get anyone to do those high need jobs. And you're right, some of the smaller districts were opposed to it because their view of special education was generally the teacher was a side-by-side teacher with a regular ed teacher. They were all in the same classroom. And we're very concerned that this teacher over here would be paid more than this teacher in a general inclusion classroom. So the intent was to make it very clear that it was only those highest need children. How you define that would be a struggle. But those are the students that are they have extreme behaviors or extreme medical needs. And finding anyone who is willing to step in and work with those children, you need to be highly trained. You generally need to have well beyond a master's in terms of the actual training to work with these kids. And so I want to stress that's what this says. It's those highest need, like our social comms, some of these other classes where we need highly trained individuals that we simply can't get them unless we pay more. And we pay more, but we don't get that money paid back to us. And so that was the goal, was to try to get that. And in the discussions, I don't think anyone saw it as the traditional inclusion classroom as being what would be funded. And so in those conversations, one of the superintendents, former legislator, was real advocate for not doing that. But a couple of other superintendents from very small districts had, for the first time, had some of these high need children in their school district. And all of a sudden, we're beginning to see how very desperate that situation can be in terms of finding the right people. If you don't find the right people, you just can't help those children. So I hope we can continue that conversation. It isn't all special education, but only that select group that are the highest need, that we have to have highly specialized trained staff to work with them. And we've even had, in this district, we've had to, a couple of classes, we were going to have no one. We did negotiate with that teacher for a higher salary to keep them there, because without it, there was no one on the horizon to take that class. So it's the need is great as the number of more severely impacted children are rising. We've got to have another level of compensation for those working with children that are just, they have a different level of need.
Well, thank you. We want to go, any other conversation, I guess, on it? Thank you. We want to go for a motion.
This is Board Member Tyler. I'll make a motion to approve Board Resolution number 23-009, special education positions.
I second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion by Jessica Tyler and a second by Jeff Morgan. And if we can get a roll call vote on this one.
Vice President Morgan?
Yes.
Secretary Scott?
Yes.
Board Member Tripp?
Yes.
Board Member Tyler?
Yes.
President Galbraith?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
As this is a good conversation to have right now, as we do have, this legislative session coming up. And probably a lot of these are not going to make it through that committee, and that's okay. But at least it helps us as a board to start thinking about what we want to, what our priorities are. And so I appreciate it.
And a lot of ours, like Dr. Quinn said earlier, they do make it through. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah. So thank you. And thank you for serving on that committee too. Yeah. So thanks for doing that. As far as advanced planning goes, one quick thing, let's see if I can find in my notes here. Something that I just want to bring attention to that came into your emails as far as dates that are coming up is there's the recognition awards for NMSBA are now open. So if you want to nominate someone for Board of the Year, Board Member of the Year, Hall of Fame Award, or the 24 Service Award, those nominations are open until September 15th. And so I believe that if you go into your email, you'll see all the links for that. So you can do those things with New Mexico school boards. And then we have on the 28th, we have an audit committee meeting at 4, an executive session at 5:30, and then a regular board meeting at 6 p.m. here in this building. On September 4th, we'll have our Labor Day holiday. And then on the 11th, we'll have a special work session at 3:30, and then a regular board meeting at 5:30. And then is there any questions or anything with advanced planning that's coming up or anything that's missed? Okay, so please refer to your agenda for any other dates that are coming up, and our meeting tonight is adjourned. Thank you all.